Welcome to Star 103.5 FM. My name is Nana Aba Anamwa. This is simply the best. This is StarrChat, your award-winning personality profile show. And I'm happy to be here. As I tell you all the time, you're better off spending your Wednesday evenings with me. And yes, you've seen the flyer. Tonight, I'm talking to a doctor. And so I need to get my biology spot on. One of the subjects that I absolutely hated in school, biology. I never liked it. But yes, I think a lot of my friends know that I was such a huge physics fan. I loved physics. But yes, not to talk about physics tonight. Just to remind you that this show is live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takoradi. We're also live on DSTV channel 885 and GoTV channel 197 and streaming around the world at starfm.com.gh. If you're close to your phones and your gadgets, you can also get the live stream on Facebook and Facebook only. Visit the Facebook pages of GHOne TV and Star FM, and we are streaming from there. As you noticed, tonight we didn't play R. Kelly's song because I have decided to change my sick tune against all odds, against all the reservations. Just to remind you again what my sick tune is. Caleb, can my sick tune for the show from today, Obrafo song. I totally love Obrafo. Yes, I'm a huge Sarkodie fan, but big ups, lots of respect to Obrafo. The show is brought to you by Dove. Dove believes that deodorants shouldn't just protect, they should care for your underarms too. After all, a lot of the best things in life lead us throwing our arms in the air, which is why Dove deodorant is created with our quarter moisturizing cream to care for your underarm skin, leaving it soft and smooth. Soft and smooth. Emphasis on these two words. So go ahead, lift your arms in confidence, lift them like you just don't care, because you know that Dove deodorant has got you. They care for your underarms like never before. Dove truly cares. Now, let's go straight to my guest tonight. My guest tonight typifies someone who dreamt of a job and has lived to fulfill it fully with a love for mankind. He's a typical Zongo boy born to the late Alhaji Abdallah S. Sese and Hajia Aisha Isakan in their polygamous home at Nungwa Zongo in Accra. His parents are from Navrongo, Wulugu, and Boko, respectively. He's the 10th of 12 siblings. He lost his father when he was barely 4 years old, but that did not stop him from pursuing his dreams. Despite the fact that he had the passion to spend more time with his books, he stole time out with his area boys to hunt for Bela, if you don't know Bela, mice and rats in the bush. His push for a better workplace led to his advocacy about systemic flaws at the Korle-Bu teaching hospital. That nearly cost him his job after a standoff with the board and management. But this has not changed his resolve to do better. His latest surgery on the special life of Michael Isiama, who painfully died as a result of the lack of enough beds at the ICU, has struck his painful nerve of fighting for mankind. Is our health system a sick one which constantly frustrates health workers? Has it forced the health workers to seek private solutions to our public problems? Are there saboteurs or an elite cabal in our healthcare system? What keeps him on the right side of history when the picture clearly looks like all is wrong? Dr. Hadi Mohammed Abdallah is my guest on StarrChat tonight. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
What did I get wrong in that intro?
It's perfect. Perfect. And I must say that I admire your passion, the passion you have for your job, and I could actually feel it as you introduced me. And I must say I'm really flattered by
it's
all
good to
that.
have you here. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been well, very well. Just missing some few things because of COVID. Not getting the opportunity to socialize, play football.
Oh, you play football?
Dance, and yeah.
Oh, you're a good dancer too?
I dance. I actually remember coming to this particular building, or the opposite one. It's Celebrations nightclub. It used to be opposite here. So I've spent quite some time dancing. And anyone from the Zongo,
they
typically
know you're a good dancer.
No, we typically dance.
And you said you play football?
Yes, I played football. It was growing up. It was something very common, and then on few occasions I also played football in Ashama and then Tema, as you'd have expected.
Yeah.
And then played some football also for my school, captained the university team whilst I was in the medical school. I also played some table tennis as well. For 7 years running, I was playing table tennis for
That's interesting.
the university. Yeah, so that's what the Zongo gives you.
So why medicine? You could have opted to become a footballer or a tennis, player. Why medicine?
Medicine has always been my passion.
Right.
And then, of course, we were not exposed to the outside world. Televisions were not available. Now the English League, for example, is a whole production on its own. And parents are beginning to realize the importance of football. But during our time, I remember I was beaten on several occasions to the extent that my mom...
By your parents?
Yeah, my mom especially. And then she realized that I still love football. So the team that I played for at the time would come and help me to do my house chores before.
You were that important to the team?
Yes. I could actually play and then also do the goalkeeping as well. And I quite remember some time ago, they used to have competition between Tema Coats and then Ashama. And that is what actually introduced me to goalkeeping, because I'd always been a footballer. We lost our goalkeeper, and then I was introduced as a goalkeeper in a particular park. It's called Mandela Park. I still remember. Okay. So I've played football around, and it's still a game that I like so much. Yeah.
And very interesting.
And I know you like football, and you support Manchester United.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately,
unfortunately, which one do you support?
I've always supported Arsenal, and
gosh, how can such a brilliant man?
Settle for such I'd always supported Arsenal. It wasn't because
why was it because of the canoes and the Thierry Henry's?
Well, it was because of Henry.
Okay.
Henry was an exciting. I still believe till date that he's the greatest player to have graced the English.
Coach Arsenal.
I would really want. I love people who have passion. He's got passion for Arsenal.
Arteta does.
I don't think so.
You don't think Arteta has passion?
I don't think so. Arteta, I think, is just following his dream. There's a difference between having passion for a job. It becomes part of you. You cry when you lose. And people will tell you, when I used to play football, there are some matches that when I was put on bench, I'll cry. The moment the coach mentions the last play, I start crying. And over the years, I've grown to probably juxtapose that in my job. And because of that, from time to time, I ran into a problem with authority everywhere that I've worked. But I've always believed that whatever you do, you must have passion. Neurosurgery has always been my dream. It's my passion. I dreamt of it. I work hard to get where I am. And I want people to see it like that this is my first love, neurosurgery. I had the opportunity to read law. I was at the law faculty in Legon. I started. At a point in time, my mentor called me and said, this is not what you wanted to do. You wanted...
Why law? How did you end up there?
Yeah, somewhere in 2005, I think, when I completed medical school and we started working, I realized that salaries were very low. And those were the leaders. Every single year group had over 80% of the class leaving for UK or the US. The brain drain was quite high. And the house officer, who is a newly qualified doctor, was earning around $150 a year. And you could imagine what a nurse was taking, a police officer, a journalist was taking at the time. And I ran into difficulty trying to get us to a level that I thought we deserve, because having worked in England to sponsor my education in the university on vacations, I knew what good remuneration meant. I could work for 20 hours those days, so I knew how it could motivate.
Oh, so you were traveling to do any job?
Yeah, I was traveling to. That's really another story without knowing anybody there, but I managed to do it. You know, so when we felt that no, the money was not good enough and people were leaving. And at the time, there have been a lot of discussions. Tony Blair had even tried to see how they could stop the brain drain, because some African countries then were complaining. So the Kufuor government then decided to bring a new salary structure and asked us to negotiate. And so we had what we called the additional duty hours allowance, which was put on hold for like 6 months. And the $150 was woefully inadequate. So I remember I led the discussion at the time. And as a young doctor, when they asked me, I told them I felt we deserved $2,000. Some doctors didn't agree. I remember one doctor actually got up from his seat as if to strangle me at the negotiations. But
it wasn't enough?
No, it was too much.
It was too much?
It was too much. He felt it was out of this world to ask for. But I still managed to just, long and short, we managed to push through. We managed to get some 1,960 Ghana cedi, which was almost like $2,000 at the time. And then that triggered various strike actions by all the health sector workers, nurses, pharmacists came together because they felt, if a house officer was going to get this amount of money, then you need to also pay us very well. So after that, then teachers came, and many people were not happy with that. But I've always said it, that it is something I've never regretted. I regret for the lives lost during that period, but I felt that also led to some offering us some dignity for Ghanaian workers in this country. I know the government of the day would say, oh, after all, we implemented it, but they did not easily implement it. And I feel that has kept a lot of doctors, of course, not being the only factor, but also the establishment of the Ghana Postgraduate College, that has also helped to put. But we are really back to square one.
I'll get into that.
We're getting a lot of nurses leaving now, including the critical care nurses leaving this country.
I'll come back in a bit to talk about the healthcare system. I just want people to understand you a bit. You mentioned Colts football.
Yes.
And as a football fanatic, how do you feel about the non-existence of that system now?
Wow, it's very, very sad. You can't replace academy with codes. You know, code football was something else, even though it cut some of us off because of my height. So I was playing under 17 when I should have been playing under 14.
Right.
You know, but that's where we unearthed a lot of talent and a lot of kids who didn't have opportunity to go to school, who had passion and the talent of playing football, were unearthed from the coach football. Now with the academy, it's very difficult for some of these kids, even though they will tell you the formal academy will offer them education and all that. But you realize that it's those who have money who are able to send their kids to those academies. There is no aggressive recruitment of these kids from our communities. And coach died because when the under-17 started and we won the 1991 Cup, most of these owners, the club owners, felt that they were going to make money from players such as, for example, Kofi Nimo he played for a club in Ashama then called Young Brazilians. He later even formed his called Leverkusen. We had Abu Idrisu, who played for Young Kotoko in Ashama. I had my own friend who was called Kwesi Apia, and then Tahiru. We had a lot of players cutting across, including Don Bote. Don Bote was with, I think, Gapua or Harbour City, if I remember. I'm sure you are from Tema, so you are very familiar.
I'm from Tema, but I know the names.
You know these names, yeah. And these guys were very talented. And every year, Ashama contributed players to the under-17 from 1991. Tema contributed. We had the Accra Coast what's his name? The captain, our old captain, Apia, yeah, you know, and it really helped. But now, with the academy, people set up the academy to make money. And here again, that is where passion comes in. We had a lot of moderately rich people those days who formed the Coast Club, and it was because of their passion. People name their clubs Young Kotoko Has Babies because of the passion they have for Asante Kotoko. They did not look at the fact that they were going to make money from these clubs. But with the academy now, it's about making money. And they are selling these players to clubs in, for example, Tanzania. You know, quite unfortunate. But that has really influenced us. I think it was
if
just...
you had your way, would you want the call system back?
Yes, I would really love the coach system to be brought back, and then government supporting these club owners, and then having a system where we would make sure that these kids play in Ghana for a number of years, gain the experience before going out. Somebody like Shamokwe and Joe Debra at the height of their career, and I remember those were the players that most of us looked up to in the late 1980s. Did not travel to England. They waited for their opportunity. I remember Joe Debra going on a trial in, I think, France or Lille, and he came back that the weather was very hot. I think that is what the media reported. But you could see they were matured players. Abedi, before going to Europe, had played through Gabon, played some football in Africa, matured, and was able to withstand the racism at the time. That is one thing people don't appreciate. The conditions under which people like Abedi Pele played, Tony Bafor, they played under very difficult conditions. And probably, even though it's out of, I always believe that Abedi Pele is the greatest African footballer of all times. Considering the conditions under which he played, you know, it was difficult. He laid the foundation for people like Oponwia to be accepted. If you've lived in Europe before and worked and experienced racism, that is when you appreciate that somebody like Abedi Pele is way ahead of a player like Eto or somebody like Drogba. You can't compare them. You cannot. They are, because the conditions were totally different.
I need to set up a conversation around Twitter this evening. Who's the greatest, Abedi Pele, Eto, or Drogba? I'm sure it's going to generate a lot of comments. But
then I've given you a topic here.
Listening to you, I mean, a couple of things running through my head. That you came from this system, and you mentioned some of the people you were playing football with. I have no idea where they are now. I'm sure you don't know where some of them are at the moment. But you came out of Ashaiman to become to become a neurosurgeon. You must be a role model in your area, and I'm just watching the Facebook Live, and I'm getting a lot of comments. It's as if we said every Muslim this evening should come and comment, but I'm seeing comments from the likes of Adiza, who says, Dr. Hadi, we are proud of you. Al Hassan saying, Mashallah.
Mashallah,
Mashallah, Dr. Hadi, for your contribution. So a lot of comments coming in from young people. You must be a source of inspiration for these young people in all of these communities. Do you go back?
Of course, I've always gone back. I mean, even when I became a doctor, I was still going back home during the weekend to play football with them.
And how was their reaction?
Oh, it was always normal. It's regular feeling because I play with people that I grew up with. And then when some of the kids began to see me on TV, and that is why I always love the opportunity to speak to them, to appear on TV, to appear on radio, because that is what attracted some of these kids to me, and then also to medicine, and then other professions. As we speak, we've had about 4 doctors after me from Nungwazongo. I'm the first person to make it. I'm the first from my family to make it to the university. But there's one particular gentleman that I'm always proud of. He's called Dr. Nabil. Nabil, I remember I went back home and his mother told me this, my son wants to be like you. And I saw him, very young chap, and I spoke to him, I encouraged him. Few years later, I heard he was in Legon. And if my memory serves me right, he would have been the youngest boy to graduate from the University of Ghana Medical School, and was representing them even What Do You Know competition. As we speak, he's the first person to have started postgraduate program in medicine from his class. And I got him very close to me and mentored him. For him, he's like my son. And I remember when he completed, I said, no, you are not stopping. I don't want you to go to the district and stay there for too long. And luckily, he's doing so well in the Department of Medicine that he's seen as a shining star. And it's virtually like my son. We've had a young girl who also is like my cousin, who also went to do medicine. She's back. She's doing her postgraduate program. It is uncommon for people to finish medicine in those communities and then want to even go further. But that is something that I've established with them, and we're trying to promote them.
That's so inspiring.
Sometimes you need to call people and make sure that those talented kids, intelligent kids, get admissions. It's very difficult, but we're beginning to get also pharmacists and people.
How did you make it? How did you end up in medical school? How did all of that happen?
Well, I must say that I was always driven by Dr. Mustafa. I heard so many things about him at the time and what he was doing. He was the first neurosurgeon in Ghana. And the fact that somebody could open the brain was quite fascinating to me. I never saw him. I had never even been to Korle-Bu before for years. Until I became a teenager, I didn't even know Accra. Or let me say Central Accra. It was always Nungwa, Shama, and Tema. So I felt, no, I want to be like this man. But I knew it was difficult because we didn't even have a graduate then from the whole community. But once one gentleman called Mohamed Mimpo is with the GCB now, he then started representing, let me say, Nungwazongo in the national What Do You Know competitions. And we saw him on TV, the support he had. Then I realized that, no, education can be very good. You can actually capture the imagination of your whole community. So I said, no, I want to also start doing What Do You Know. And since then, all of us, all the guys who did medicine in Nungwazongo have followed that path. We've always been we participate in What Do You Know. And this makes us very competitive. And I remember it was difficult. I mean, growing up and going through education. But JSS is where I met an angel. I had a teacher called Madam Felicia Odai, who even make me first when I wasn't in school, because she would tell them if Hadi had been well, he would have been first, and she would show them that, because she wanted my result to be very good, so I'll be first in all the subjects. She helped me to pay my school fees when I was in JHS. My mom did her best. She was alone because my dad had died. She pushed so hard, and I felt that my mom was doing so much and I needed to help her. And that is where I started doing other jobs at her blind side to try and support her. And
what kind of jobs?
So I used to go to Teshinungwa Estate, which wasn't far from us, and I'll go and weed. I even weeded the house of some of my we used to have what we call langa langa. So
Yeah, I know
this said,
langa
yeah,
langa.
and teaching in West State was a well established estate. I actually weeded some of my mates' homes without even knowing. I quite remember there was this young girl I had a crush on in school those days, and I saw her coming out of the back door of their house to pour water. But then I was weeding, and when I saw it, so I just called the mom. I said, "I'm stopping this job." You know.
Did the girl see?
No, she didn't. She didn't see me. But I think those things shaped us. I've worked in construction companies before.
Doing what, masonry?
Masonry, yeah.
Right.
Cracking of gravels, stones, like these metamorphic rocks for people to build. I've done those jobs before. There was a time that I remember I envied one guy who was actually cleaning toilets because I thought his job was easier.
It was better than yours.
Because we were doing the hard job, but it helped. You know, and after JHS, I felt no, I shouldn't bother my mom. And I was very good in table tennis, so I decided to teach my former school. In my former school, made some money. I think it was, if I remember, like 2,000, maybe now 20 cities.
Right.
Bought some plywood, and then got a colleague who was a carpenter to fashion a table tennis board for me. And that is how I started table tennis in Nungwazongo.
Right.
And I would say that through that, we produce national team players, people who have played for, and then my junior brother also picked from there. But table tennis too was good, and with the football, I managed to make some money going around playing the table tennis, and use that to help my mom, assist my mom to pay my school fees whilst I was in the boarding house. And throughout my education, I never enjoyed any of the scholarships, even though, and I'm saying this because there may be other kids like me and we need to look at them. I would say I was top of my class at the time, and probably the school in terms of academics. I was an entertainer. I played football. I played table tennis. I represented the school in What Do You Know, but I never benefited from any of the government scholarship, even though I knew people who did sports benefited from it. And I played table tennis to the extent of playing for Greater Accra table tennis. But I think that this shouldn't happen to other kids again. But that said, it toughened me. And when I finally got admission to Legon, I just felt that no, I've overburdened my mother and I needed to take my destiny into my own hands.
Right.
And that is where I started going to England to work. My first trip, I didn't know anybody. Really, I didn't know anybody.
Just landed at Heathrow.
Yeah, I just landed in Heathrow. I'm sure the British ambassador will not be happy hearing that, but I landed in Heathrow and just walked out of Heathrow, met one black guy, and I felt this guy could be a Ghanaian. I spoke to him.
Was he a Ghanaian?
He was a Ghanaian. He was a Ghanaian
Yeah,
who had gone.
Served you right.
Yeah. And then with another colleague, apparently was coming to pick one of my seniors in school. So we went to his house. I lived there for 3 days, and then, UK, their rooms are very small. I had a girlfriend, so I just said, no, I need to find my way out. So I spoke to someone who introduced Telford. Telford is like an industrial city, but a lot of white, very few blacks at the time, somewhere early 2000s. So when I was going to Telford, I mentioned it to other colleagues who were also in London, but they had families they were living with, but they were not getting jobs. So they then were ready to join me. So I called two of them, and we went to Telford. And I remember the first day I landed there, we managed to get a Ghanaian who had been there for a while. We rented his house, paying about £250 a week. But there was so many jobs to do. Right. My first night, I started working in a bakery, and then had another job in an ice cream factory. So I was working about 20 hours in a day, and we made good money. And since then, that is how I sponsored my university education.
So you used to bugger. That's what they call
Oh
it.
yeah, I used to bug. I always tell my wife about my first trip when I came back. Those days you leave your hair, and then there was this I'm ready to fight. You know, we wear it, and then we were like, oh, Ghana is too hot. But that was during our youthful stage. But you know, I did not see it as suffering. For me, it's a privilege because some of my colleagues try going to Europe, or my friends, I grew up in Ngwazongo, try going to Europe, and they lost their lives. My very, very, very close friends, people.
They go through illegal routes.
Yeah, one tried going through Stowaway through the port in Tema, and whilst he was on the ship, someone spotted him. One of the security guys spotted him, and then he tried to capture him or to arrest him, and he was called Mohammed. So Mohammed jumped from the ship into and you know how the Tama port waters are. He was in a tight jeans, he couldn't swim, and anytime I talk about him, you could feel it in my voice. You know, Mohammed was so gifted. They watched him die. Nobody saved him, and there was no investigation instituted into that. And then the other one was Tyro, who was playing for Young Kotoko, talented footballer. Tyro, with other two friends of mine, decided to embark on the journey through the desert to Libya, which many of our people then did. And when they got to Libya, I think because of he had an injury between a match between Young Kotoko and Young Hearts, where a keeper stepped on his shin and had a fracture, and was taken to a Ponchi clinic in Tema. So even though the leg healed, there was some significant angulation. Right. So from the information I had, the Tuareg rebels attacked them, and he couldn't escape.
God, I'm so sorry.
And might have. He was a fine footballer. If Abu Idrisu, for example, is listening of the 1995 Starlet film, Abu can tell you about how talented Tyro was, but I'm sure from all indication that we lost Tyro, because the other two have returned and Tyro is not here. We had some of our guys who were bent with ties in Nigeria whilst they went on. So that was the life. I mean, fast life, you need to hustle. Right. And it's very similar. I mean, if you go to Nima, you hear it's similar, and that is why my story resonates with most of these people.
Makes sense.
You know, youth to be bent. You know, we investigate what happened in Gambia, but for my contemporary, my people in Ngwazongo who were bent in Nigeria, I'm the one actually speaking. I'm the one bringing it out that this actually happened to Ghanaian youth in Nigeria many years ago, in the 80s, where they were bent with ties because people accused them of, and most of our guys had to pass through those treacherous journey, and that was always the mindset of our people until we saw people on TV in a What Do You Know competition. So for us, for people who think I always come on air to speak or they always see me on TV, I need to do this to let our people know that it is important, and with education, it is possible. So we are different. There are people who have doctors. They have so many doctors and lawyers in their family to the extent that they are non-entity in their family. Yeah. But I mean so much to my community. I mean so much to the Zongos. And it is important that we inspire these young kids. I've always said that for a young child to be able to memorize the Quran at the age of 5 years, 144 chapters, definitely this child is not stupid.
Absolutely.
It's because they did not get access to education. These children are geniuses. They are out of this world. But most of these kids did not get access to education because they only had access to Makaranta. Wow. And we I wouldn't say wasted, but we did not let them realize their full potential. And we have these kids in the zongos.
I get you. I mean, I've done so many interviews on this show since I took over as the host of StarrChat, and I dare say this is the most inspiring interview I have had.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is the most inspiring because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about a lot of the things many people from privileged homes take for granted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And they don't know what others go through. Some
Yeah.
people just want inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, for that young boy, I remember Nabil, now he's a grown up and he's married. I mean, to walk to me and said, I want to be like you. You know, and we should always look back and say, how many
Wow.
young kids have we been able to inspire? We need to learn how to mentor people. It is something that is lacking. I was properly mentored by one gentleman, I always call him gentleman, called Dr. Idrisu.
Right.
He established neurosurgical training in Ghana. He has trained 17 people. This man has mentored me beyond medicine. And that is the same mentorship that I'm giving to Nabil. I'm always happy. You know, and mentorship is not just about just mentioning it. There are times you may have to release funds to push that person. Like we have in football management. You need to push the person. And I am calling on Ghanaians who have the resources, especially those who have made it. There are young guys. I'm sure you know of this guy called Mazi Okoro. He's from there. You've interviewed him before. Yeah.
Brilliant
You
guy,
know?
Nima. He's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Mazi is somebody who should be given a scholarship to go out of this
He's
country or any of our
brilliant.
institutions to do his master's program.
Yeah.
You know, the changes that he's making in Nima, his reading club, you know, I sit from afar and I see his activities on social media and the changes that he's bringing among these kids, trying to inculcate the habit of reading into these kids. He needs support. These are the people that we need. I'm not from Nima, but, you know, I'm always happy to see people from these areas. And I'm sure there are people in Choco who are also trying to do their best. And these are the communities that's where we really have the talent.
Yeah.
You know, and we really, as a country, we need to look at that. And the single barrier to these kids is the current state of our primary education. It is so poor that it is very difficult for these kids to really make it out of JHS. You know, I attended Saito, but it was because my mom gave me a good foundation. I started with an international school, and when my dad died, I had to go to Saito. But that is the sacrifice, ma'am. And so I know the value of good foundation. Right. I know the president is talking about free education access, but I think if you are able to educate the kids right from nursery to primary 6, they will be ready to fly. And that is where we should put our emphasis on. If we don't do that, we are cutting these kids. They will be very intelligent. I'll tell you one story. I once went to Agbogbloshie. I usually assist my wife to shop. Right. And I like Agbogbloshie. I like the marketplace, you know. And then I met this, someone called me actually, just mentioned, and the person mentioned Hadi. And usually for those who have known me through university, they either call me Dodi, which is Dodi Afai, which was my nickname, yeah. Or they would call Dr. Abdallah. But he called me and I said, no, this guy didn't know me. So I got closer to him. And I said, Mohammed, can't you identify me? So what are you doing here? He was selling onions. And not like onions on a large scale. Just was this tabletop? Yeah. I said, Mama, what happened?
And you knew him from your...
I knew him. This is a guy who got aggregate 8 ones at the time.
At the BC?
Yeah, BEC. He had to sell that to make sure his sisters went to school.
Wow.
He's from Nungwazungu.
Wow.
Look, I felt so sad. I remember when I came home, I put it on Facebook, and then because I had admission with Accra, but because of the fee, so the then Accra headmaster, through somebody, told me that they are ready to help me. But I said, look, I'm 35 now.
Oh.
I can't go back to school.
Oh.
This is a brilliant
Hope's dashed.
chap.
Yeah.
And that is where the free education maybe comes in.
Yeah.
But I knew the school that he also attended. It was a very good school at the primary level. So if we strengthen primary education, we'll be able to pull some of these guys up. And it's very, I know this conversation is not just about education, but we need to look at the importance of education. I'm where I am today because of education. Though I was talented in sports, but how many people were able to even make it
Right.
in sports? But with education, you are able to bridge a gap.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always said that if you see many of these top politicians and very successful people, they were just one generation away from poverty. Most of the Ghanaians you find, is it despite? Is it the Osafo Marfos? When you see their grandkids, their children, behaving like, oh, they lived in the US or the UK and all these leisures that they are having, just reflect their parents. They were coming from the villages.
Yeah.
And it was because somebody thought of giving them good education. So for Marfo, for example, will tell you how they brought him to Achimota.
Yeah.
A lot of them benefited from Achimota School. So lots and lots of Ghanaians. And I know Bolare very well, for example, because Bolare was my contemporary in Legon.
Right.
And look at where Bolare is today. Look at where I am today. Meanwhile, if you flip me back, like somebody said, front and back, I don't have anybody. if I look behind, there's really, if you flip me back, I'm back to Nungwazungu. If something happens to me today, let's say I don't have a house, I have to go back to Nungwazungu. And that is what I always tell my children. And that is why I always tell.
How many do you have?
I have 2 kids.
Oh.
You know.
Bless them.
And I take them to Nungwazungu so they will appreciate life.
Right.
So the opportunities that were given to our politicians, they should always cast their minds back to where they were coming from. Because when they say they are going home, they are going to their village.
Yeah.
And they should look at giving similar opportunities like Nkrumah gave to them, like Gajisberg gave to them. They should give that opportunity to our children in the Zongo to have very good basic
What did you
education.
make of the Zongo ministry, Inner City and Zongo Development Ministry?
I thought it was a brilliant idea, but the execution was terrible. And that is why I talk about passion. And that is why I said we started this program with passion, because I could feel it when you started talking. You love this job. I'm sure even if you give you a job at the World Bank, you won't take it.
No.
Because you love it.
Well, it depends on the salary.
And all right. You know, but I think the Zongo ministry should have focused on education.
Right.
The building of the pitches and all that, I think, was just a side issue. They should have focused on education. Look, if you speak to some of our coaches, they will tell you how important education is and how these kids sometimes fail to appreciate tactics. It's very important. And I think that if any government thinks about the Zongo ministry again, they should focus on education, giving these young children proper education from primary level, like Nkrumah did with the northern region. You know, the Zongos have forgotten people. I always tell my friends from the north that you had free education because Nkrumah instituted, but we in the Zongo had to compete with kids from Teshinungwa Estate for the same slot. Meanwhile, if we had the same thing, the government had recognized. So the Zongo ministry, I think, should be brought back, but they should refocus. The policy should be changed to focus on education. Education is a leveler.
Yeah.
It's a leveler. Today, my next door neighbor is someone that we had always wished to go to their house and actually weed
their house.
My next door neighbor is a daughter of one of our illustrious professor called Professor Yebua. And the day I told her I was from Nungwazungu, she was shocked.
Right.
She's called Sewa Yebua, now Sewa Aqua. That's my next door neighbor.
And today you are neighbors.
Through education. Exactly. I remember when we see them, we always say, Zongo kids, these children are big because of the lactogen they eat.
Lactogen babies.
Yeah. And we were made to believe that being smallish made you strong. And that was the mindset we grew up with.
Yeah.
And we couldn't. I see my kids today. I say, wow, it means I could have been bigger than this.
With the right food.
Yeah, with the right food.
That's interesting. So, neurosurgery, why that? I mean, you talked about opening up the brain.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, what's the human brain like? I've always wondered. Is it soft? What is it like?
It's very soft, but very fascinating.
Right.
It's a convoluted structure.
Okay.
We have a right and then the left brain. And then as you drop towards the neck, at the back of the brain, we have what we call the cerebellum, which is the center which controls our balance. And also even is responsible for our speech, our ability to speak very well. And then below it is the brainstem, which actually is the center which controls your blood pressure, your heart. And the brain is the master organ.
Is it a difficult organ to study?
Very, very difficult.
So why that?
Well, for me, it's because it's a fascinating organ. This is an organ which controls every part of your body, including the last nail, the skin. The brain controls it. The brain can tell your heart to stop, and it will stop. That is how fascinating that organ is. And I always compare it to like a radio set where you have ICs. Right. The ICs are small structures which represent some major part of radio or television or any electronic. And it's the same thing. So your finger is represented here. Your heart is represented. Right. The area which controls your... And for me, that made it fascinating to me. And I want to study this organ. And the fact that people thought it was abnormal, the fact that somebody like Dr. Mustafa was seen as, excuse my language, as psychotic. How can this man, it's abnormal for somebody to open the brain, and cut the skull open and then fix the brain and put the skull back. I mean, and I found that organ very, very fascinating. I said, no, I want to study. And then thankfully, when I came to medical school, then I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Mustafa, who has since then become like a father. How did you feel
meeting him? Like you had met a god with a small
He's a sweet man, He usually you would melt, or you will freeze when you meet someone you've always looked forward to. Yeah. But he's such a warm person, and until date, I could go and he's someone that I could leave my kids with during the weekend when my wife is not around. He's someone who could ensure that I get a passport, someone who will ensure that I get a visa. Right. He and that is what mentorship is about. I mean, he's someone one day I want the country to celebrate. He's reproduced himself 17 times. Some countries don't even have one neurosurgeon.
And we have 17.
We have 17.
Interesting. How did you feel the first time you saw the human brain?
Well, the first time I saw it was in the cadaver lab, first year medical school. It was a preserved brain, and they used some chemicals, so I'd become stiffened a bit, But when I first saw the real brain was during our pathology session, where we're looking at studying what killed a particular patient. And I was shocked that you could actually squeeze it and it will just melt.
Yeah?
You know, yeah, you could
That's how
actually
soft it is.
very, very soft. You could squeeze it into a sluice or maybe a drainage like system. That's how soft it is, you know. But it is also an organ that you see so many convolutions, and it is an organ that I think science have not finished studying.
It's
because
complicated like
as
that.
we speak, the brain and the spinal cord, which is one unit of the central nervous system, are the only organs which have not been able to be transplanted. We've done the skin, we've done eye transplant, heart transplant, lungs,
Kidney.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I probably say that the day man is able to transplant the brain, probably will be getting closer to immortality.
Wow.
It is such a beautiful
You
organ.
say
you know?
this, look at the smile on your face as you talk about the human brain.
Yeah,
I
you know.
always wondered. So you hear things like, okay, you're falling in love. Go with your head and not your heart.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to you as a neurosurgeon?
Yes, it makes.
It does?
It really.
How?
Because it's the brain which really
Controls.
controls the heart.
Right.
So if you screw your head on very well, your brains are working very well, you should be able to say that, oh, this girl or this boy doesn't belong to me, or this profession doesn't belong
Right.
to me. Yeah, because when you've been bounced before, you know.
Have you been bounced before?
Well, I think I was bounced, and and that is what actually gave me the name Dodi Alpha Ed
Right.
in the university. And I remember those days we used to
Write
write
letters.
letters. I remember reading the letter and I slept, and then I had this 2-level 400 students in my room at the time, the Hamza Bawa and then Jamil, and they stole the letter and made sure everybody on the floor got to know about it. And yeah, and it was true that I got the name Dodi Alfayed on campus, and that made me a bit popular as well on campus, because it was the same time that Princess Diana
had died,
yeah,
had passed.
you know.
yeah,
And
in the
yeah, there are times you see. I love beautiful women. I really, really love beautiful women, and that's why
Is that that's how the human brain works in yours?
exactly.
You just spot the beauties.
and I'm somebody who doesn't believe in beauty lies in the eyes of the beholders.
You think beauty is universal?
It's universal. If somebody is beautiful, it's definitely beautiful. We should. I believe that it is.
How about those who are beautiful within?
How can you be beautiful within? I mean, what kind of? I've heard that thing being repeated.
Yeah.
So I don't
Inner
believe.
beauty.
I can see within. Within what? Your lung, your heart. I mean, because within is your brain, your lungs, you should. And you see, and I think sometimes we deceive ourselves with those things, because there are people you could see and you become struck when you see them.
Mm-hmm.
There are women that certain women see, and they shake on their feet because they've never. And men had falling whilst climbing stairs because they've seen beauty, their reflection.
Yeah.
It's God's creation.
Right.
You see, I feel that when we lower beauty to that level of lies in the eyes of the beholder, it's inside, we are failing to appreciate how crafty God is. God has a reason for creating somebody beautiful. And that is why that word exists, beautiful. I'm sure when beauty was thought of by the English, they thought of the human. I mean, what you see. It is not what you see
Now
inside.
suddenly I want to see what your wife looks like. She must be drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, she is. She is.
Will you marry a second?
No, I'm very comfortable and I'm satisfied with my wife. But as a Muslim, I also accept the rationale behind God giving us the opportunity to marry 1, 2, 3, and 4. But there are conditions attached to it. But I love my wife so much. It took me some time to get her. And this was a lady I always watch on TV, and was like, wow, she's pretty.
On
And I'm
TV?
sure people,
Who
people.
is she?
Yeah, she's called Swad Sofo Arabi, one of the most beautiful women to
I love
come
the
from
name, Swat.
Swad. Yeah, actually it's mentioned Su'ad. That's how the Arabs
Okay.
taught us to mention that. It means like something beautiful, flowery.
So she goes by her name.
By her name, yeah. And
Have you seen
sure-
any woman more beautiful than your wife?
no,
Oh.
no, I've never seen. And but I know there will be beautiful women more than her, because she's not the end of God's creation. And of course, she's also got children that she's going to give. And if my genes are very well, then maybe we'll have more even beautiful women.
Oh, so you're going to add on to the two?
Yeah, to the two.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
We thankfully we're expecting. I don't know whether it's going to be a male or a female.
You don't want to know.
But even my children, I love my kids. They are beautiful. I see my kids and I thank God for giving me a handsome, very handsome son. My son is gorgeous, more handsome than me, probably 10 times handsome than me. I have a daughter who is also Imani, who is also, she's also very, very pretty. And I also have an external family with a lot of beautiful women. My sisters, I see my sister and I see beauty. If you go to my external family, the sceneries, they are there. So I've lived around beautiful women. That is why I appreciate beautiful women. My mom was tall and very pretty.
Right.
So
you're a very tall man. How tall are you?
I'm 1.85. Yeah,
you're really
1.85. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I must say you are also very beautiful.
Oh, thank
you.
you.
And probably I should take this opportunity to say good evening to one of my colleagues called Gameli. Gameli would always post is it a picture? What do we call it? When one of your ladies post something on Facebook.
So he take a screenshot.
Yeah, and put it on the doctor's page. And,
really?
I think she's called.
Let me guess.
Is it?
Sewa.
Yes. So I'm sure Gamel is listening to us.
I guess right.
And many doctors, I'm sure, are listening to us. So
Hi, Gamel.
I've finally
Greetings from Sewa.
I've finally taken his message. He's a fine doctor, very, very fine doctor at an accident and emergency. I know it's been very difficult for him to carry this message. He's a Liverpool fan.
Oh,
and
too bad.
he support.
Fan.
Yeah, that will make it
That
work
will make
very
it
well. Yeah. So Gameli, I've done your bidding for you.
Yes, you've delivered the message. That's so funny. That's a good one. All right, so back to neurosurgery, and you're a neurosurgeon, and you mentioned that there are 17 of you. I mean, we've been smiling a lot, but I now want us to focus on our healthcare system.
Thank you.
I listened to you a few times after the death of Michael Isiama, Ama's son, and I could sense a couple of things. Anger, and anger was pretty much clear.
Yeah.
It was loud in your voice. You were angry. Why were you so angry?
Yeah, Michael is a special boy. He was very, very special, very talented. I met this young man who was at the age of 13, boldly told me he wanted to be a neurosurgeon. He was able to describe the surgery, and it's a very complex surgery he underwent. He composed a song for me and my colleagues, even when he was in pain. He was a fun to be with. I mean, everybody loved him, and we tried to put in our best. And I'll say that we probably have one of the best assembled neurosurgeons you find anywhere in Africa. I believe in my colleagues. I know what they can do. These are people who had opportunity to practice elsewhere, and they are here with us. These are people that they refer cases from Liberia, from Sierra Leone, from Gambia. These are surgeons that people wouldn't mind to bring their state officials to operate on them. We've had cases from Congo, from Burundi, from Ethiopia, who were operated in Korle-Bu. And this is the level of confidence people have and I remember Michael looked into my eyes and told me, look, I am confident. His mother was confident in us. We had his first surgery, which was very successful. He had a second surgery where we went through. Then also probably in few areas in West Africa where this is done. We did a post-operative CT scan, and we had virtually taken the whole and this, remember, this is a very difficult tumor, was located almost at the center of the brain, around one of the most important organs in the brain, and the nerve which controls our eye. So the tumor has a propensity to make you blind, and even surgery could make you blind. So there are a lot of complications which could be associated with it, and only few areas in West Africa could do that. So we had this surgery. We were sure we'd done a very good job. Unfortunately, when Michael was brought to the world on the third day post-op, when we had actually done a CT scan and seen how well we had operated on him, we lost him that day.
Right.
To something that I wouldn't have expected in a 13-year-old, you know. But now going back and learning about who Michael is, I'm not surprised he left us at that very young, and I think that he's made a great impact. But it is painful when you have put in so much and lose a patient. And for me, since the day we lost him, it has never, probably we could have still gone ahead to lose him. And I'm sure you'd have heard the mom talking about, if he had stayed in the ICU for some number of days, because really that is what it ought to be. But we should also... How
long must you stay at the ICU after a surgery?
Ideally, for Michael's surgery, you need about 48 to 72 hours. Okay. But I must admit that Michael recovered very well immediately after the surgery, but we needed to keep him there for some number of days to monitor, because these surgeries comes with some complications, you know. But because of also the pressure that we have in the ICU, it's a 4-bed ICU, and these ICU probably we give neurosurgery maybe 1 bed or 2 bed, and then the other 2 beds, either the ops and gynae department, because our pregnant women, because of the way we manage them in the hinterland, sometimes we come with complications which will necessitate them going, and that is so the ICU is almost always full. And because
and it's only four
and it's not, all the 4 is not for neurosurgery. It is subject to availability, even though they will tell us we have 1 or 2 beds available but it's always subject to availability. If they bring a pregnant woman who needs it, you have to put her. If somebody has some severe pneumonia, you need to put, or a child, you need to. Thankfully now we have the children's neonatal intensive care unit, but some kids under some circumstances may even have to be put on the 4-bed. It used to be 6, but for some reason they had to, because to make it efficient in operating. And remember, we've been losing our nurses as well. We are losing our nurses to Europe. And of course, when COVID also came, for some reason, shockingly, we gave some of them to Trinidad and Tobago in the name of humanity and the economic benefit.
Was it Barbados?
Yes, Barbados.
Yeah, Barbados.
And it's something I know that people don't want to hear about. It is not just about this government. If you go back, and I'm sure if you Google, this same ICU that we're talking about in 2014, it was under lock and key, because we were renovating the place.
It was under lock and key?
Yeah, for 4 years. For 4 years. And we suffered. Neurosurgery suffered. We lost our patient at a point in time against the advice of my head of department. I'm saying this because I know for sure that after the interviews that I've had over the past 1 week and this, I know the government will come after me. I know Korle-Bu will come after me because I've been through this. The Korle-Bu board may come after me. The CEO, even though he's a very good friend, a big brother, someone I look up to, I'm sure he may be forced also to come after me. But this is not about individuals. In 2014, I did the same thing when the NDC government was in power. And if you Google, I said that the NDC government was not serious because if we allowed Ghanaians to die because of $700,000 to put this ICU in use, and we allowed our patients, Ghanaians, to die, people raise huge sums of money to go to India whilst waiting to have surgery. And those were the days we should have even started the fix this country. You know, so I had friends in the media. I had one guy called Hadi, who was an investigative journalist. I called him. I said, look, Kwete, I've lost a 21-year-old sickle cell disease patient who was at Tech. She was able to fight sickle cell and make it to the university. And I saw this lady die gradually. She walked to the consulting room. We saw her neck tumor, it was a spinal cord tumor, gradually paralyzing her to death because we didn't have the ICU function. All surgeries were just boxed into the first floor, and we were fighting with all the surgical discipline for the same space.
And
you know,
so the excuse was that?
And the anger was not, you know, I mean, it was like there were contractual issue. We didn't have money, you know, and people couldn't tell you what exactly the problem was. So after Kwete interviewed me, and I said that, look, if a country is not scared of its citizens, but could be scared of 23 sport footballers, and remember, I like football, and be pushed to break all international laws
and fly money to Brazil.
Because of these 23 unhappy young guys.
Young, strong guys.
You know? And I remember the government was not happy. They were not happy at all. And this went up. People even wrote stories around it. So, and I remember I didn't get any support, even from some of my friends, that, yeah, I went against hospital regulation and I spoke. I had to get a lawyer to defend me during that. Unfortunately, that is the problem. We have developed to the state that people don't care, you know, to go through that. We've developed to the state that we think it's normal to have hospitals without monitors on the ward, without defibrillators. We think it's normal.
That shocked me.
Yeah, to the extent that even when we make plans, you see, that is how shameful it is and how embarrassing. And as Ghanaians, all of us, we should bow our heads in shame that even when we think of building new hospitals, we do not even make provisions for defibrillators, because that is the subculture. That is our practice. But in countries that are serious, you find defibrillators even in gyms. It is disgraceful.
In phone booths.
Yeah, in phone booths, in Monaco.
You find defibrillators
in many advanced countries, you find that. And how much is a defibrillator? And if you speak to the cardiologists and the cardiothoracic surgeons, they would tell you how defibrillator has helped many people. I have seen an 85-year-old man survive, 85 years, that we could have given up on, that is old. Through CPR, this man survived. He's now got what? A pacemaker. Mwamba was playing football. He survived.
Yeah.
So that is where we are. It is not just about Korle-Bu. It is not just about Komfanochi. this is what our healthcare system is about. This is a healthcare system where for years we've had neurosurgical patients occupying majority of our emergency wards. And it is so because for the neurosurgical cases, they may not be able to pay for their surgery. So if you have somebody with spinal cord injury or head injury, they are likely to stay at the A&E for a long time. If somebody has pneumonia, it is easier to stabilize the person within 72 hours. He or she will move to the main ward. But for neurosurgery, because of the number of cases we have our ward always choked. And because of that, our patients are unable to have surgery, so they choke their emergencies. And that is one of the major causes of the no-bed syndrome in Korle-Bu. And for years, this country has never, probably, for my colleagues and those who came before me, they've always spoken about the neuroscience center, that we need it because that would open up the space for Korle-Bu. Look, when someone breaks the leg, fracture, they don't need to be at the emergency. The orthopedic surgeons will quickly fix that leg, but spinal cord injury, brain injuries are different ball game altogether. If somebody has a brain tumor, can you imagine somebody like Michael, the calls they had to make before they got bed? You know, and it is not just, and I've heard people say that if you have money, you can. It is not true. Doctors have died in front of that same emergency. Doctors. There was one of, we had a teacher. He was the only neurovascular surgeon. The vascular surgeon in Ghana at the time. You know, I'm sorry to remind his family of that. This man taught medical student. He consulted, left the hospital very late. 2 hours later, he had an emergency. He was brought to Korle-Bu emergency. They told him there is no bed. All right. And then secondly, we had a chief resident. I remember I was a medical student. Chief resident is for the postgraduate. He's like the chief. Newly married. He was married, I think, to a lawyer. Stood on his feet operating on pregnant women. He got home. He collapsed. They brought him. They had to resuscitate him on the floor.
There was no bed?
No. There was no bed. I think 2-3 weeks ago, the accountant, I've been told, the accountant of the accident center had an emergency. I must also say that he could have still died because of the nature of his condition. They brought him to the emergency. From what I heard, initially they couldn't even get, and this is the accountant of the accident and emergency. So you see, when you hear people say, oh, when you come to Korle-Bu, people will take bribe before giving, it's like they don't understand what goes on there. They don't understand. Look at the number of people, and if you ask Michael's mother, she will tell you the number of people she needed to call. To the extent that they call, my brother had to call me. And sometimes you go, your own relatives, you can't get bed for them. You know, and it is a torture. It's something as doctors we go through every day. People call you at midnight, not because of your work, but just because they want a bed space. You have to be on phone. You are always scared, if you've got family here, to leave this country. It is one of the reasons why some of us have decided to stay, to make this system better. I was going to
ask you, what's the inspiration? Because you are a top neurosurgeon, and every doctor that I spoke to since Monday that I was going to interview, I asked them, what's Dr. Abdallah like? And the things they say about you, that you are a top surgeon, you can get into any hospital anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So why, despite all of these frustrations, you continue to stay and fight on? What's the inspiration?
Yeah, if you've gone through what I went through, I mean, for some reason I was sent to Winneba. Whilst at Winneba, I saw the state of our healthcare infrastructure. If you talk to Samida Aku, Ivas Mensa, they will tell you the stories. And that's why, for me, I appreciate the media very well. The work that I've done with the media. Somehow, people in Korle-Bu are still finding it difficult to understand these things that I do. Well, when I was in Winneba, we saved a woman who had been chained, pregnant woman who had been chained in a spiritual home. She was almost losing her life. I've worked with journalists to go into the deep villages in the central region to save children who were sold into slavery. I have followed my patient to check on them deep into the forest in the eastern region. You know, when you go through this and you realize the suffering of our people and how somebody from, for example, from Wa would have to be flown to Accra to have a simple neurosurgical procedure, you will realize that we have a lot to do. And for me, that is what motivates me. I have refused to get frustrated, because if you get frustrated, you will lose it. People have gotten frustrated and they've packed off. But when you get frustrated, what you need to rechannel that energy into trying to make the system better. We have different ways of making things work. Some will say you should lobby. But the Neuroscience Center, they've been lobbying for years. They've been lobbying for years. You go in our healthcare system, people wear catheter. It's shameful. My own father came home with catheter because of BPH, prostate enlargement. I was young then. Today, my dad would have had surgery. He suffered renal failure from that. As we speak, there are people wearing catheter and are waiting to have surgery. Meanwhile, as a country, we've not thought of expanding urology practice in this country. The urologists have been begging for a renal and urology center. This country cannot boast of a center where we can train people to do transplant. This is the country Abedi Pele came from. This is the country that Kofi Annan comes from. This is a country that some of the workers in NASA come from. This is a country that will insult news graduates, engineers, that they are unable to even produce a machine.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the support to put. They have the knowledge. Go and see what Ghanaian engineers trained in Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology are doing in the Gulf. Meanwhile, these same people, we insult them. This is the same thing we do to the Ghanaian doctors. I've seen colleagues who just left Ghana, and those are the people who motivate me. People who are probably far better than someone you beat in class, and because he or she finds himself in a good system in the US, will tell you have mismanaged a patient. Oh, this boy shouldn't have died. I remember when Michael died. Some people bash and say, oh, if Ben Carson had operated on him,
under
he would have,
the same condition.
Yeah, under the same condition. You know, and I said, look, how would somebody like Dr. Banka feel?
Yeah.
Dr. Banka worked with Ben Carson in Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, I read that.
You know, when we make such comments, it's painful. I have operated on an American citizen with Dr. Banka. This guy had an accident in Sierra Leone on a mission, and they flew in him here. We opened his skull and removed a black clot. We saved him. I'm saying this because we know who the Americans are. You watch American movies. It is based on their core principle. Yeah. Americans will not just give their citizens on a mission to an African to be operated on. That should tell you the caliber of people that we have. So if they are able to equip us very well, if they equip our scientists very well, we'll be able to go to space. If Ghanaians can go help Americans to go to NASA, it should tell us that if you fix the healthcare system properly, Look, we will produce even more. Look, Nanama, it's painful that we have a system that ensures after the 21st century that it's taking over 10 years to train a neurosurgeon after medical school. And we are happy about it. We are happy.
10 years.
And when neurosurgeons speak and say that, look, we think it's too much, we can do this within 5 years, there are people who will tell you, no, we should use the same system. Meanwhile, why doesn't have a neurosurgeon? If you go to Tamale, they have a retired neurosurgeon. Retired neurosurgeon. And we have a system where somewhat a young guy like me, they will tell you, oh yeah, if you really want the system to work, then go to Y and go and start there. And because this person did that there, you know. And I asked them, what do I start with? You know, as a country, we have to change our mindset and believe in our own people. As I see you speak and listen to you speak, I know you can perform in CNN. Those are not better than you. They are not. You are probably far better than them. And you've seen what Gary is doing. What Gary is doing with sports. And he's a young guy. You see, when I see Ghanaians able to do that, it tells me that, look, these guys are not better than me. I've operated with white guys here. We gave them a simple case to operate on. The guy actually threw our instrument away because he said he can't use it. I said, this is what we use. This is what and we are comfortable with it. So it is not just about attacking one government or the other. But when you go to our hospitals and you see the oxygen pipes there, and then you see a cylinder by, it should tell you that Nkrumah will be turning in his grave. Because we have retrogressed as a country. If we could build a hospital many, many years ago and had pipes, oxygen pipes to it, and thankfully GMA will be discussing our oxygen situation very soon. And I want the media to be interested in it. That now we have to depend on cylinders for most of our hospitals. We have hospitals that we don't have monitors. It's disgraceful.
In 2020.
You see, and the young doctors coming up think it's normal. So I'm sure when you call maybe a young doctor that you want to build a hospital and he should help you. Look, I would be surprised that that young doctor, as part of your plan, will even think that you should add a defibrillator to it.
Because
it is not, but meanwhile, this is something that even ordinary citizens should be able to do. And I am challenging you that you should start it here. I want the media houses to install defibrillators and challenge the government to do same for our hospitals.
Oh, I talked about defibrillators recently on Twitter.
Wow.
And ICU beds recently.
Yes.
Oh, I was attacked. From every corner.
I know.
I was attacked by both. You know, for the first time, the NDC and the NPP were in one corner against me. It hardly happens, and this time it happened.
I know. I mean,
anyway.
you know, people don't like truth.
I know.
And when you speak truth to power, you should know by now that people will always come at you.
Oh, yeah.
People are not comfortable with the truth. I have gone through it. I wouldn't be surprised that
you go
people
through
even,
again.
yes, it's normal. But you see, if at the end our healthcare system is better, and I see the angel of death coming, I'll be smiling. You know,
on that note, let me take a break.
Right.
When we come back, I'm going to pick Dr. Abdallah's thoughts on the UGMC. I'll also pick his thoughts on how we managed coronavirus pandemic here in Ghana. And he's been talking a lot about the brain. I've seen some of you sending questions. I'm sure Dr. Abdallah will find this question very funny. Somebody's asking, Dr. Abdallah, I think you should think about this question as we take a break. Somebody says, his parents are always knocking him. They always give him a knock. Is that going to affect his brain later in life? We'll come back And Dr. Abdallah will respond to a lot of the questions you've been sending in. Stay with us. This is Star 103.5 FM. This is StarrChat, also live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi and Empire 102.7 FM in Takoradi. My name is Nana Abba Anamwa. We'll be right back.
Extraordinary radio for discerning listeners. Star 103.5 FM.
That's right. Just because something is good doesn't mean you can't make it better.
What are you on about this time?
New and improved Shell V-Power Unleaded with boosted Dynaflex technology.
Improved? I have enjoyed the performance of Shell V-Power.
You will still enjoy performance and now efficiency also.
That's indeed better.
Drive to your nearest Shell station and try the new and improved Shell V-Power with boosted Dynaflex technology. Go well.
Missy ne boy be a Michiano. Real deal, package ankasa. Tall, dark, pink lips, muscular with six packs. Handsome with designer clothes and shoes, baby. Girl, he wasn't playing at all.
Hey, that?
I was eyeing him the whole time. Sonia Mechano. I strategically positioned myself in front of him. And then he opened his mouth and said hello. Oh, we're ready.
Hey, oh, slow.
Don't let this happen to you. Use the new Blue Close-Up Cool Breeze toothpaste. It comes with a new minty flavor for long-lasting fresh breath. Stay fresh with Cool Breeze, because blue is the new cool. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
That's right.
Charlie, make you bring me one more mini. Crisp and refreshing. Cold to the last drop. Born for occasions. Club Mini means there's more celebration. Open the bottle, feel the surprise. Cold to the last drop. Club beer. Charlie, there's pride in your eyes. Club mini bottle, awesome refreshment inside. Cold to the last drop, right from the first gulp. Cheers to Club Mini. Club, crisp and refreshing. Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons below 18 years of age. Not recommended for pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
Star 103.5 FM. Simply the best.
You're welcome back to the show. I'm talking to Dr. Hadi Muhammad Abdallah. He's a neurosurgeon at the Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital. And you know, after listening to all of this from you, I think I should have written a better intro. I'm so unsatisfied with the intro I did.
You did so well. You did so well.
Anyway, so your thoughts on the UGMC?
Yeah, very, very beautiful edifice. I thought the idea behind it was super. But the implementation, the way we allowed politics, to come in between us and such a beautiful structure, I was shocked. But I also want to throw in this in here. Having known the problems with Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital, I would have thought that the UGMC, the funding that we had, could have been used to build some of these centers of excellence. UGMC is basically a replica of Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital. And for me, to some extent, there was some lack of understanding of our programs. The intentions were good, but there was some lack of understanding because you can't keep building Korle-Bu all around. At the end, you will still have this no-bed syndrome. But when you have the centers of excellence, they're going to have, for example, Neuro will have its own CT scan. It will have its own MRI machines. You didn't have to be transporting patients. We built UGMC without having, for example, a PET scan. As a country, we do not have a proper oncology center. Of course, we have the radiotherapy and radio-oncology center in Korle-Bu, but we should have a cancer properly built center with admission beds there for this patient. Currently, the system will pray the patients go and come. It is sad. that common things like PET scan we don't have.
What's a PET scan?
So PET scan is positron emission tomography, which is a device which is used in actually making diagnosis and also for the treatment of cancer patients.
Right.
You know, and it plays a significant role in the management of cancer patients. Until recently, which I'll give thumbs up to the Korle-Bu board, we now have what we call the LINAC, the linear accelerator. I don't know whether it started with the old government or this government. I don't really care about that, but it is good. But radiotherapy has even advanced to the extent that, for example, Michael's tumor, people are able to now do it without necessarily even cutting the patient or going through the nose, where you can use what we call gamma knife, cyber knife, you know, and this reduces the amount of radiation that the patient has. You know, when you speak about this, our people will tell you that, oh, these are highfalutin things. We don't need it. But this is country with gold, with diamond. This is a country where the same officials who tell you that it is too much will go to India to go and have the same services. And nobody so far has sat down to quantify the amount of money we spend sending this patient abroad. And having done all this and built UGMC, it is not functioning to the level that we had expected it to be. So I think we need to reorient ourselves. And I'm appealing to the government that the second phase of UGMC should look at building some of these. I wouldn't mind if the Neuroscience Center will be built there as a structure on its own. And I can assure you that UGMC may not, looking at the structure, may not be able to pay for itself the way we want to operate it like Korle-Bu. But if you build these centers of excellence, they will be able to pay back their money, whether it's a loan or whatever. They'll be able to pay because these services are not even available in West Africa. Meanwhile, we have the doctors. You'll be shocked that Liberia until last year didn't have a neurosurgeon. And I still get referrals from them. You know, it's sad. UGMC has not helped us, and probably the politics too didn't help us. But it is the setup. Right from the beginning, we got it wrong. And in planning, we should now start looking at, you see, if you want to build such structures, you should also consider those who are on the ground. Most of the time, we tend to work more with people at the ministries in terms of policy. But we see what is on the ground. They should talk to the surgeons, talk to the physician. And recently I had to write a report for somebody with lupus, and I'm sure Dr. Day may be listening to me. Very wonderful lady. You know, sorry I am digressing a bit from the UGMC.
That's fine.
But this is a country that lupus patients with autoimmune disorder, have few places, to the extent that even when you want to see the doctors in private facilities, they have to give you an appointment. You know, and there are Ghanaians who suffer from this. I had a colleague who after school decided to go to India to go and specialize in hepatobiliary surgery, which has to do with liver and then the gallbladder, like diseases. He told me when he was going, they were like, no, I mean, how many of such cases do we have? After all, if you have liver cancer, you die. You know, they try to discourage him. This guy went, trained. After 2 years, he came back, and I will tell you currently, he has one of the highest number of cases you'll find worldwide. His first year, he operated on 123 Ghanaians with various liver problems. That in the past, they also this, you should go and die. He's called Dr. Fair, and I want to acknowledge him. These are the people who, in their small way, are trying to make changes. Yeah. These are the people we need to build the centers for them. And Nanama, we are working with all these people in the same building. In Ghana today, if you have a kidney problem, you need to get money and go to India. Meanwhile, we have Ghanaians who the Indians are not better than, who could have trained. You know, when we invest in health, the jobs that will create, and there are countries who are making money from healthcare. So I would say that, look, the solution is not building structures like UGMC. You see, quaternary, the aim was to build a quaternary center, but quaternary center shouldn't be a replica. It should be a specialized, super specialized center, so that Korle-Bu then will refer the cases to them. But people bypass UGMC and come to Korle-Bu. Legon Hospital is always referring cases to Korle-Bu. You know, people are referring cases from Eastern region. They bypass UGMC and come to Korle-Bu. And this is bringing pressure to bear on Korle-Bu.
Right.
You know,
I understand the equipment that was used to operate on Michael, the one that went through his nose, was for a private citizen. It wasn't for Korle-Bu.
Okay, so let me put it this way. Okay. We have a very old machine, you know, but even with that, you still need to change the main equipment that you work with. So one of my seniors who mastered in this endoscopy surgery, through his small savings, buys this equipment, sometimes between $5,000, $10,000. And I should salute Dr. Boate for doing that and introducing that type of surgery in Korle-Bu, you know, with his family in the US, and he's here. He's here. All his children, they are here. And his little money that he makes, he uses it to buy this equipment. And some of the surgeons will tell you, even when this equipment breaks down, they don't get replaced. You have to fix it yourself. You know, to be, when you come from abroad, to be able to function, if you are coming back, you probably have to come with containers. For example, what happened with Dr. Banka, who, after leaving Johns Hopkins, the military, the Walter Reed Hospital, gave him a facility, I think about 40-footer container, about 2 of them, worth between $20 to $30 million of equipment. As we speak, 11 years on, we've not been able to either clear the equipment.
What?
Yeah, free. It was given to Ghana. You know, and you should speak to Dr. Banka. You tell her how emotional he is about.
What?
And I remember during that, if you can Google, when you go, the Walter Reed medical equipment to Ghana. And you could see the Ghana embassy in US was aware of it. The Ministry of Health, they were all trying to defend themselves when they... And I remember when I joined the neurosurgery unit, I came out to speak about it. The media spoke it. We don't know where and this even contain like CT scan machines. You know, it's painful.
My goodness.
It's painful. When, for years, I was working here with my family in Dubai. You know, and I could have got a good pay there. But my kids are now here. They could have probably gotten a better education there. But they are all here. You know, this is what surgeons are doing. Dr. Ofer, who went to train in the hepatobiliary surgery, his patients sometimes should come out and speak. You know, he's doing a lot. And some of these patients may need ICU.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we don't have adequate ICU. We don't have enough critical care nurses. These nurses need to be paid differently from other nurses. And that is something I think we should also talk about. You can't pay a critical care nurse the same as a nurse who works at the OPD. Someone goes to nursing training college complete and decide that I want to take care of critically ill patients with all the risks. Some of these patients have very terrible infections. And these are the people who will keep these people alive. And we have a healthcare system, a pay structure, which decides to pay these nurses the same. And I'm not surprised these nurses are leaving this country. at the end of it, it will affect my job. Look, we can do all that we want to do. If we don't have adequate critical care nurses, they will cancel my case. And this is what is happening. Because they will tell, well, we are not enough. So we can build the ICU, but if we don't make sure that we pay these people well, in football, Nanama, all the footballers are not paid the same.
No.
And it's one of our major problems. And that is what makes us lazy as Ghanaians. And that is why people have this entitlement posture when you go to the ministries. You go to the ministry and somebody, because I'm a civil servant and I'm there, because we don't even have any target for them, they don't really care. They don't really care. And, you know, what we do at the ministry, it's our public place, is affecting us in every sphere of our life. So you go to the ministry, a high-performing person is not paid very well because we should all receive the same salary. And you have this lazy approach of designated director of this, director of that, director of that, and they are all the same.
We love
you know,
positions,
yeah, and you pay,
titles.
you go to a mining company and you are paying the human resource director the same as the director of engineer. It's preposterous. And that is what we are doing to our healthcare system. And probably that is what we are doing even with medicine. That you interview young doctors and they will tell you, well, me, when I finish, I want time for my family. So I want to go and do public health. Public health is important. But you see, the way and manner they say it, the way a nurse will tell, no, me, I want to go and work in the OPD. And we see these things. And if you don't fix it with COVID.
Yeah. What did you make of the management of it?
Well, I think that we did well. We did well in managing COVID, even though people insulted us, including Paul Adumotre, when GMA asked for the lockdown. And I must say I was very disappointed in his comment, trying to attack Ghanaian doctors at the time. Apart from that, I'm very, very disappointed, and very disappointed that when COVID came, some people felt it was a way of enriching themselves. And what happened at our airport is a disgrace. I saw Ghanaians who were trying to return home, but we took advantage of them.
How?
And well, they had to pay. They had to pay for the test. You know, and it's sad that as a country, we did not see it as an opportunity to build our infrastructure, but we gave it to a private firm. It doesn't belong to Ghana at the end. This was an opportunity to have retool Noguchi and give them that opportunity there. I know they wouldn't come out to speak, but you see, when there is a health crisis, the last thing you should think about is making money out of it.
So you think people profited?
People profit, and they are still profiting from it. And it is sad. At the end of it, probably the only legacy that we will have will be the infectious disease center. COVID has not taught us anything. And I can tell you, as we speak, in spite of the fact that we have built the infectious disease center, we have not taken it a notch higher to make sure that we build other centers in the country. And COVID is not gone. And I wrote an article a month ago about my fears for Africa, especially West Africa, because I have seen COVID destroyed Europe, killed people. It started from China, came to Europe. It went to America. It killed so many people.
No,
and you should see the caliber of health professionals it killed. Some of the gifted surgeons in this world died during that period. We've seen what is happening in semi-tropic areas like Brazil, like Egypt. My fear is that we are ill-prepared. You know, because India, with all the sophistication, with the caliber of health professionals that they have, look at how COVID ravaged it brought their system to a halt. Yeah. And I say this because of what happened between late January and early February in this country. I lost a friend. This is a young guy who had been able to make it in the IT industry and had employed so many people, so many young people. He's a Muslim who was even paying fees for Christians in the university. Orphans were dependent on him. Late January, they called his mates, who he went to school with in Lagos, because he did chemistry, so they were in the science class. They couldn't get a bed for him at the time. And this was when we were recording cases, a little less than 1,000 cases in a day. You know, so for me, even though I would say that the management has been good, it is the foresight to plan. Right. The fact that people saw it as an opportunity to make money is what hurts me. This facility at the airport should have been for Ghana.
Right. Okay. So I have. There are so many questions coming in for you, but unfortunately, I've even overrun. I hope I'm forgiven.
Sorry.
That's fine. Not your fault at all. I'm the one carrying on the conversation. So someone in the comment section on Facebook is asking a very interesting question, that constantly his parents are knocking him. Would it affect his brain?
Yes.
Oh,
you know,
really? Knocks up?
Yes.
Oh, no wonder
you know,
sometimes I don't think right.
Yeah, and we need to be very careful.
Right.
You know, there was this African pathologist, I think should be a Nigerian, who married a Kenyan, who in American football noticed that some of these young black folks who played the American football were coming with cognitive dysfunction, and the way they died, the way they became disoriented before death, triggered him to investigate. So he started looking at their brains, taking slice of it and looking under the microscope, and then noticed that because of the continuous hitting of the head during the game, in spite of the fact that they always had the helmet on, it caused minute distraction of the brain, and he called it chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is, so it's chronic. That's and huge. It kept off. So if you keep especially hitting the head of young people, you
knocks,
right? and probably it can affect the IQ of the person, because you can cause brain injuries to these children. And that is what has changed football. You see, sometimes we watch football and the education is there and we don't appreciate it. In England today, when there's head clash, you realize that they take time to take care of of those footballers, and a doctor comes to the pitch. It wasn't like that in the past. And there's a rule governing that. I even wonder whether we have that rule in Ghanaian football today.
Ghana Premier League, we just have pure water.
But that is the basis. It was from that particular research. It was from that part. So parents should be very careful.
Right. And I've always wanted to ask this, because I read about it and I still don't understand. What causes brain tumor? I mean, this will be one of my last three. What causes it?
It's very difficult to tell. Very, very difficult to tell. But majority of the patients, you really cannot pinpoint what causes it. But what we have noticed over the years through science is that some people genetically are predisposed to having brain tumor, either from their grandparents because of some genes they inherited. Okay. The role of radiation is clear. For people who were exposed to radiation at a young age, especially children below 3 years, their risk of developing cancer is very high, including even multiple, just the normal clinically given x-rays. Hiroshima, we know how those people suffered from, and we don't know the situation, for example, near the atomic energy agency.
Yeah.
The role of some viruses have also been made clear. There are certain viruses like the Epstein-Barr virus or the CMV virus. These viruses have the potential to also cause cancer. And of course, HIV. The HIV virus causes a specific brain cancer called lymphoma, primary lymphoma of the brain. Okay. Now, for mobile phones, the research so far has been inconclusive. Now, if you Google, you realize that they will tell you it doesn't. You know, but some scientists have actually argued that those who did the initial research had sponsorship from the mobile phone companies. And we've used mobile phones. Probably, I think some of these mobile phones started coming. I remember when I went to UK. So from 2000 or somewhere in the late 1990s, that's when we started having this. And so we've not properly studied it. But so far, the research that has been done doesn't show. But in science, we've also had people say, oh, alcohol, a little alcohol is good. And later they will come and tell you, oh, it is not good. So we have to be very careful. Right. What I would advise people is that don't speak on the phone. Don't put it by your ear for more than 2 hours. You know, it is very important because we don't know what will happen later on that we'll find out. If you want to speak, use the headphone or now AirPods, those who have something.
It's better to use that.
Yeah, or you can even put it on speaker. It's much better than because it actually heats up. Yeah. And once it starts heating, it releases some radiation, even though it's radio frequency. But it is important for us to be very, very careful. Probably it's going to take about 50 years to properly appreciate the role of mobile phones.
Interesting. Yeah. If there is anything like afterlife, I'd like to be a neurosurgeon. Hopefully, I'll be intelligent enough.
No. You don't need a lot of intelligence.
Really?
I've always said that. Look, when it comes to medicine, I think
but the best students in our classrooms went on to become
that is how dysfunctional our educational system is. Right. So majority of us should have been doing engineering and creating things for us. I think we need to relook at our educational system. You see,
I could have been a doctor.
You perform much better. Your delivery.
I'm flattered.
You see the way you are able to deliver, and when it comes to clinicals, during the clinical year where you go to the hospital, the exams really depends on knowledge, but also the way you are able to deliver. And people, and I've seen consultant wowed by the way the ladies, especially the ladies, Wiggy has come up, but they are.
I was going to ask you about that.
Their girls can deliver very, very well when it comes to the delivery. Yeah. And I think that we should rethink about it. If people do very well and get A's, definitely that guy shouldn't have been doing medicine. We should look, I have a colleague that I know very well. This guy neurosurgery is underperforming that guy. He should have been an engineer. Right. He should have been an inventor. We should leave medicine probably for those, and I know this is very controversial, but I think that for those who get aggregating 9 to 12, we should consider giving them medicine. And if you have someone getting straight A's, we should properly listen to those people and find out what. Because if you realize the Legon Preset guy, the very young guy who had all the A's, I learned he's not going to do medicine, but he's even well exposed, So for me, I think medicine anybody can. Neurosurgery is tough. You need out of endurance and then really stamina, because the surgery takes a long time and you need to be patient. So we always said that a neurosurgeon should have the heart of a lion and then the fingers of a beautiful woman. Because
a heart of a lion, you need to endure.
Exactly. And I like the profession because it's one profession that Sometimes we say it's like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It makes the blind see. The deaf can hear. You know, the cripple can walk. And we see all that in neurosurgery, where I've seen people come. And that's the painful aspect of it. People bleed into the brain. And all you need is a simple device to drill a hole in the brain, evacuate the blood, and within sometimes on the operating table, someone everybody thought is dead, cannot talk, will open the eye and start talking. But if this happened to the person far away from Korle-Bu, it's likely the person will die because it is a life and death matter. Meanwhile, the treatment is very simple and short. And it is painful when such patients are brought to our hospitals and we tell them that there is no bed. And this is where I want to make an appeal for the establishment of the Neuroscience Center. Because this patient has nowhere to go. Unlike pneumonia, where you can go to Lekman and be treated. Unlike hernia, even a ruptured hernia, where you can go to any of these hospitals. The patient with brain injury, with brain tumor, has nowhere to go. Apart from Korle-Bu or Konfanochi. There's some work which goes on in Reach Hospital, UGMC, but really these are the centers. And if you fail them, you know, and sometimes I wonder when we lose this patient, what the pathologists feel, because he opens the skull and see the blood clot there. Yeah. And so for us, my colleagues have operated on people even at the emergency before. Because we know that if you're going to wait for the person to be wheeled to the theater, he will die. We know by operating on the patient there, he or she could get an infection, but we can treat the infection. But if he dies, we've lost him. This is how committed these people are. They are in Ghana and they want to work. So I'm appealing to you. I'm appealing to the private sector. For me, having gone through and all that various government have done to me, I've lost hope in the Ghanaian politicians. I've totally lost hope. But people like Senor Hosi and the work that they did with them gives me hope about this country. It really, really gives me hope. And I'm calling on GMPC, on all these institutions to make it work. I don't want somebody to die because of a small clot in the brain. Right. I don't want somebody to wear catheter. They call it rubber. I mean, it's disgraceful. Yeah. And they go and they change it, and then, hey, you know, and I'm sure our women are not even happy.
No.
I mean,
happy. Why would you be happy?
Yeah, sometimes young man, because there is no money. Yeah. He has catheter there.
Yeah. Okay, finally, your thoughts on the fasting brouhaha.
Wow. I thought that matter is gone. But really, I helped to issue a statement. I'm the General Secretary for the Islamic Medical Association of Ghana. And I've said that when I issued a statement, we did not get any counter statement from our colleagues. And Wesley Girls have built a lot of doctors. In fact, statistically, I think they have the highest number of females in the medical school. You know, sometimes you do things with science, and there's a benefit to fasting. There's a lot of benefit. And I will employ the headmistress and the board and the Methodist Church to go and research about autophagy. Autophagy is a term which just connotes eating of the cells by a cell within a particular organ. The one who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology in 2016 is a Japanese. And he realized that for those who do intermittent fasting, as Muslims do, and some Christians also do, he noticed that some of the cells are able to engulf bad cells, cancerous cells, including viruses in the system. And he went ahead after that, after people have actually done those work, he went ahead to now identify the genes which are induced during fasting to play that role. And for him to be awarded the Nobel Prize, even some of us are trying to write common research, we can't even go through our normal ethical clearance. For the whole faculty, I mean, it should tell you, and over the last 3 decades, 3 of the winners have been those who won the Nobel Prize Award. And you know, in medicine is not about common sense. I learned somebody say, but it's common sense. If you don't eat, it means that you cannot function. The advice is, if you use common sense in science, you may lose your senses. Because it has been shown that, again, and these are proven experimental studies, you usually think that when somebody fasts, their bone density will reduce, isn't it? Their bone will be weaker.
Yes.
There's a proven studies which show that it's a particular compound called the DPP4 in us, that when you rather fast or do intermittent fasting between 8 to like 16 hours, there's upregulation of this compound, and it increases the bone density and prevent osteoporosis even in our older folks.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and this is not an observational studies. These are experimental. It's proven. So we should let our children benefit from this. All that they need is to be guided. If they hide, they may not eat and may go beyond 16 hours. If you do that and you go beyond 24 to 72 hours, you'll be starving. You end up breaking your fat and then your muscles, and you become leaner, and then you may even lose appetite totally. It then affects your cognitive function. Food is very important, but sometimes food can make us full. If you eat heavily, banku, it happens to all of us in the afternoon. If you go and eat banku, you usually feel sleepy, isn't it?
Yes.
Meanwhile, intermittent fasting for most Muslims is just skipping lunch, you know, and it's because when you eat heavily during the day, there is pooling of blood towards the stomach. It competes with the brain for blood and oxygen, and sometimes it can make you a bit drowsy, and that is what makes, so especially binge eating is not good for us, you know. And I want the Methodist Church, the Wesley girls to contact their old students, you know, because one side effect shouldn't cause us to stop something. I've had a young man who participated in school sports, was brought to us in Korle-Bu. He broke his neck during high jump. Should we say because of that we should ban school sport? Because we know sports is, so sometimes the knee-jerk reactions are not good. I know they meant well, but they should look at the science behind it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hadi Mohammed Abdallah. Such a pleasure talking to you. And I'm saying this again, that this is the most inspiring interview I've had since I took over StarrChat.
Oh, I'm blushing.
Yeah.
I'm really I actually didn't know you could talk. Let me tell you why I first met you. I first met you in GBC, I think.
Yeah. That's why I started.
And they had a small canteen. I remember you were there sitting down.
Oh, no, I can talk.
Like yellow sissy, very quiet.
I was a yellow sissy. I can really talk.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure talking to you. And I think you are a phenomenal human being.
Thank you.
Bless
Thank
you.
you. And I'm very happy for the opportunity. And I want to encourage all Ghanaians, especially the young ones like you, like Bola Ray, other journalists that I've worked with over the years, and some of these young forces who are coming out, the fix it and all that. You know, it is always difficult to make a change. The system will always fight you, as Domlev always said. You know, and I know he may be listening, and I say good evening to him and all progressive Ghanaians who are trying to make it happen.
Right.
The politicians may mean well, they want the country to be better, but they should always just step back and let people help them to straighten their line. Ghana is for us. Korle-Bu belongs to Ghanaians. They are the real stakeholders. They say the patient you see queuing at Korle-Bu, it is their hospital.
Yeah.
That hospital does not belong to Dr. Abdallah. It belongs to Ghana. It belongs to them, and they should be interested in it.
Yeah.
It is a monumental structure that our forefathers bequeathed to us. We should make sure that it works. We should make sure that Konfanoche works. We should make sure that the Winneba Government Hospital works.
Right.
And I'm encouraging all the young doctors. They shouldn't look at going outside the country. I will encourage people who want to go out and go and improve themselves and come back. At the end of it, your country will recognize you. The opportunities that some of you have given me after winning my award in Nigeria. There are Ghanaians who have won awards also in the US, but they are not known. You know, you are much better with your people.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
Abdallah,
you.
for talking to us. That's it for StarrChat tonight on Star 103.5 FM. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy the rest of the night.